Variations.
At the very end in this album we have a few different setups in terms of sounds and instruments that we use for the songs. So we have an electric setup where I use the synth bass, electric piano, voice and drums. And we have an acoustic setup, a trio acoustic setup, which is piano, drums played not as a drum set, traditional drum set, but more as a percussion setup, adapted to the fact that we don't have bass lines in that specific case, and voice of course. And the quartet setup, acoustic quartet, which is double bass, acoustic piano, drums and voice. For this session I had to realize that we needed something more, so we called a friend of ours who's a marvelous double bass player, and he came today to join us in the session, and of course he provided his musicality, and he was brilliant because it's not easy to enter somebody else's world so fast, and so he provided a very good contribution to our music.
Ho conosciuto Francesco a un concerto un paio di mesi fa. Prima avevo ascoltato qualcosa della sua musica, però non ci avevamo mai conosciuto di persona e non avevamo mai suonato. In realtà anche in quell'occasione abbiamo suonato un brano, però mi ha parlato un po' di questo progetto, ho ascoltato qualcosa dei loro lavori precedenti, dei loro concerti, e quando mi ha chiesto di registrare qualche pezzo, insomma, sono stato felice di accettare.
I always like to give value to the members of the band. Very often while we are performing live, I always love to give space to the musicians to take their own speech, musically speaking. The session is not over, but the plan is to have 3 tracks dedicated to each musician singularly. So one song by the drummer, by himself, by the singer, and by myself. So we also want to have a little space to present something else that is not in the landscape of the other material recorded during the session. Interaction with the musician, to be honest, has been perfect during this session. We had no problems, and luckily during our preparation work, Martha and I were able to, I would say, engineer or design this session pretty well. During these sessions I tried my best to play as much as possible all the instruments together, because I want to have live and immediate interaction between the instruments. I don't want to have sessions like in other genres, which are technically possible, where you play the drums, then you play the bass, then you play whatever instruments in a different session independently up to the voice or whatever. I always like to have this kind of immediate perception connecting the musicians live. So that I wanted to do for the bass lines too, and that was a problem. And one of our decisions in terms of what we want to record something that is playable and presentable to the public during a performance. We don't want to provide something that is not realistic to be played. So when I cannot play all the things I have in mind, I prefer to change approach than overdubbing, That's technically the point I'm trying to make. Technically speaking, I spent a long period recently studying and trying to discover how the synthesizers work. Because my use of the synthesizer was, let's say, surfaced knowledge. But recently I spent a lot of time learning how to use them deeply, and that is a type of knowledge that the conservatory does not provide you with. So you have to invest a lot of time. In this session I try to use this knowledge in a way like I would imagine a handcrafter would do. And this means that we made a decision, a purpose. We want to give a direction in music, and one of the elements that we put in our decision was to use a certain kind of sounds.
Radiations. Radiations. Me, 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 me. Aya. Ni, ni. Dim, dim, dim. I close my eyes and dream that I can fly.